To the Daily Drop-In Morning Show, where the Teach Better team is live every single Monday at 7 a.m. Eastern. We are so thrilled to be here. It is Thursday, October 21st. There are a lot of holidays. We have some good news stories for you. Evan Robb is in the house. We're going to continue our dialogue for our theme this week, which is all about understanding what you want your messaging to be, understanding your personal and professional brand, identifying your audience, and what you can do as a classroom teacher, leadership member, or anything in between to ensure that you are sharing the right elements of what you want people to see and work with you on. We're going to get into all that good stuff and obviously introduce our incredible guest here when we get right back. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday, October 21st. I hope you all have your warm coffee. We do a morning cheers together to kick off our Thursday. Evan, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing great, Ray. I really appreciate the opportunity to get together bright and early to talk about education, talk about leadership.
Oh, I was so thrilled when I saw your name on our docket this week because, as you know, and not to completely embarrass myself, I've been following you for a long time. I always value any time we can sit in on the same meeting together. And I was thrilled that I essentially have your undivided attention for like 45 minutes. This is like the highlight of my week. I'm just letting you know this is exciting.
That's very kind of you. I was equally thrilled to be able to review your wonderful book, Teachers Deserve It. And also, as a principal of Clark County Public Schools, you give the keynote for our convocation this year. So, I certainly, on behalf of my staff and all the teachers that I know in my school division, they absolutely loved everything that you had to say. So I'm equally excited to be able to spend some time with you. You're doing a great job.
Oh, always so fun. For everybody here, good morning. Thank you for tuning into the show. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And if you're listening to this after the fact, either you're catching it maybe after the fact over on YouTube, or maybe you're listening on Teach Better Talk podcast, we're thrilled that you're here. Make sure to be an active participant. I know it's bright and early, and we talk about how it's always good to make sure you're consuming good information. But remember that this is a continuous conversation. So feel free to throw your good mornings in the conversation. Any questions that you have, will be here to be a part of your learning opportunity this morning. Evan, for people who may not be connected to you, maybe this is their first time connecting with the work that you do, would you mind kind of sharing your background, what you do in education specifically?
Yeah, absolutely, Ray. I am, this is startling even for me to say, but I'm actually beginning my 30th year in education. So I started as an English teacher, history teacher, and went the route of being a team leader, a department chair, assistant principal, and a principal. And I think the one thing that's unusual about my professional career is I think I'm one of those maybe slightly few people who went into being a building level principal who didn't really want to move out of that position into a central office position. So I started a principal position in a different school division in 1999. And I have been a principal since then. And the school I'm a principal in right now, I've been there since 2004. And it's actually the school where I started my teaching career. So started teaching there, went away to be a principal, and then came back to that school.
Wow, that's fabulous. Sandra's in the comments saying that she's also celebrating her 30th year in education. So you guys are in a very special club. That's amazing. I want to hear more about, though, why you feel committed, like the principal job is the spot for you. I don't know that I've ever had a conversation or interviewed somebody that was really, adamant that that was going to be the step that they were working towards, and they just didn't necessarily have aspirations to, continue up the ladder, so to speak.
No, that's a great question. One of the little quandary that I went through, and probably I think a lot of people go through when they start thinking about potentially moving into admin, crossing to the other side, however people perceive that from being in the classroom. I like working with kids. I like being, I like the energy of being in a building. And so as time went on, less and less interest to work in a central office and be more and more removed. Also started realizing over time that that if you're in the right division, if you're fortunate enough over time to have a really strong faculty, good community connections within your building, you can really do some very positive things for teachers and for kids within the role of principal. So it's just kind of a mindset thing. So instead of thinking about, well, the only way I can make an impact is I have to keep moving up or moving into different kind of central office positions, thinking about, okay, in this particular position, how can I develop, how can I grow, and how can I elevate learning and elevate teaching in my building? And, it's the same thing, and I know you talk with a lot of teachers, and I have incredible respect for teachers who stay in the classroom for 30, 40, I've known some for 50 years. And I think over time they realize that they have the ability to have incredible impact on kids day in and day out. And then, of course, over time, it's like throwing a pebble in a calm pond. The ripples just keep going onward.
I feel like there's so many questions I have about this topic, but I think the direction I want to start with, Evan, is this week specifically. I have no idea why this has come up so much, but this week specifically, I sat in on an admin mastermind, which of course, if you are listening right now and you're not, if you're in a leadership role and you're not registered for our admin mastermind, you can do that over at teachbetter.com/mastermind. But in a mastermind and in a conversation that I had yesterday, I had two separate type of educators. One was in leadership and one was in the classroom. Ask me kind of what's next for them. They were looking to brainstorm. In the mastermind, it was with a larger group. In the meeting yesterday, it was just one-on-one. But they were looking to explore. They weren't looking to leave right this moment. They weren't looking to necessarily make a drastic change, but what's next for them? What's the next big project? And Evan, I think kind of the beauty in what you're highlighting is the next big project doesn't necessarily need a different title. The next big project could be changing your mindset or your approach in the role that you're in and continue to have an impact with obviously the massive perks that come with obviously the role that you're in.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think sometimes people think that the next thing is linear. It's a movement up. But it can be something within, where you sort of go through some recalibration and start thinking differently about the locus of control that you have within your position and how you could be a positive influence. But it can also be a movement sideways. And that's been something that I've enjoyed. So that could be blogging. It could be writing books. I think I've written 5 books now.
I know, I want to talk about that.
And also, I spend a lot of time writing, and also, speaking and being able to connect with people, in a different kind of way.
Well, and all the suggestions you just provided, any educator can do. It doesn't matter currently what their title is. Everyone can blog, pursue writing a book, start a podcast. Like that collaboration, that opportunity to share your voice isn't just accessible to specific people in specific roles.
Yeah, that's the really neat thing about social media. So I don't want to deviate too much, but when I first, I think 2015 was when I started getting into social media, and I unfortunately was the guy back in 2007 saying, Twitter's ridiculous. Who's going to do this? And clearly made some errors along the way with that. But then I started getting connected, realizing I wanted to, build a PLN and starting to connect with educators, certainly such as you and and many of the really great members of the Teach Better team. And so I started a blog, which was really as simple as setting up a little website. I did it on WordPress, learned how to do that, watched some videos of 12 and 13-year-olds teaching me how to build a website, and then set up a podcast, which was as simple as getting a free signing up free, I think through Podbean is what I do, and just starting recording and getting things out there. And then suddenly, organically, as you start building your place within social media, those things start expanding, and you find your niche, and suddenly you're reaching a lot of people, and for very little certainly minimal investment of time and almost no investment in money.
It's funny, Evan, it's like we've planned this because our theme this week is all about identifying what you want to share with others, finding your voice in doing that, identifying your audience, and really kind of crafting the narrative that you live within. So we're going to transition here into our brainstorm bank segment to kind of dive a little bit deeper in that topic. We'll be right back, friends. Good morning. We're going to continue our conversation. But as many of you know, as all of you know, if you've tuned to the show before, our brainstorm bank is an intentional time for us to pause and say, hey, friends, do you need anything? This is a time where if you have anything you are in the process of brainstorming, whether it be a personal goal or a professional goal, feel free to throw it in the comments. Evan and I can't promise that we'll have the answer for you at all, but we absolutely will be here to brainstorm with you, maybe connect you with somebody who might be a good ally or resource for anything you're struggling with at any level. So feel free to throw that in. But our theme this week was kind of weird, and it's really taken a beautiful kind of like shape as it's progressed, Evan. It's all about this concept of knowing what you want others to expect from you in terms of kind of building a personal and professional brand. You have very, very clearly, and I hope that you know this about yourself, otherwise I'll just continue to butter you up. You've built a very powerful brand, not only I assume in the school that you're working within, but on social media. You are a very trusted educator to gain insight from. And I'd love to kind of hear your journey. You said, that you didn't necessarily believe in Twitter, and now that's a great spot where you connect with educators every day.
Thank you very much for the kind words. So when I started getting into social media, I had, fortunately, enough maturity at that point in my life to realize that there were potential pitfalls, in terms of how I was represented on social media. And over time, this has become something that, I talk about and encourage teachers within my building, which is, you have your professional reputation, in your school as a member of the Teach Better team, such as you do, and then there's your reputation within the world of social media. And there's a lot of things that have to do with that. Who you follow, who you retweet, whether you go down political road or a road that's highly opinionated. And what I've learned is, what you got to figure out, like, what's your lane, like where do you want to stay and where do you feel comfortable that you can make a positive influence. And so for me, it is within leadership and it's within literacy. So I don't move out of that lane at all. I don't follow people that are not educators, and I certainly don't retweet things that would be controversial or share my personal opinion about something that may be political. And I think you got to pay a lot of attention to that, because once you put things out on social media, they stay there. And if there's any advice I could give for people that are thinking about getting into Twitter, Facebooking or Instagram or any of those things, is really start spending some time thinking about what your brand is. Who are you? What do you want to represent? And then start connecting with like-minded people. And then share information that is valuable and motivating to them. And then organically things start growing and you build connections over time.
Well, and I appreciate you kind of saying the phrase, like, staying in your lane. Like, that's kind of what I've been searching for in terms of phrasing all week, because we're talking about, on Monday, Jeff and I were live. We were talking about identifying the 3 to 5 things. What are 3 to 5 things that someone can expect from your profile if they go and pop over to your social media accounts? Mm-hmm. And that is kind of what, in simplistic form, we were talking about. What lane do you want to do work within? It doesn't need to be the entire life of Evan Robb in one platform. It can be just one of Evan's passions and a little bit about his life, that people can get to know you as a human being. And so I like that mindset, as hopefully our incredible network has been kind of processing this throughout the week. It doesn't need to be every single moment in your life. It could just be, I want to focus on leadership. So I want people that come to my profile to understand that I'm transparent, understand that I'm passionate about leadership, that I'm eager to help others, right? We can kind of build those 3 to 5 things that people can expect. And then it helps you with some of the content you share, who you follow, understanding the audience you're talking to. These are all very powerful, simple things to get you started.
Yeah. I remember, like, when I first started, I was like, what do I want to get out there? What do I want my things to be? And, I think it takes a little time. I encourage people just to kind of sit down and brainstorm a little bit about that. And then once you figure that out, or even better, what are the things that you want to communicate that you actually feel like you might know a little bit about, and you can contribute and help other people. And then you stay in that lane. But, you're right. Look, I mean, there's certainly more to me than, leadership or literacy or having good motivations for people. I like to fish, I like to run. I mean, I have all these other things that I like to do too. but I'm just not going to put out on Twitter a picture of me catching a big fish. Um, it's just not, that's not what I want to communicate, within that medium.
Yeah, and this conversation is so relevant to somebody who's passionate in leadership or somebody who is passionate about something else in education. I just had a meeting yesterday with a kindergarten teacher that had so much passion for engagement and learning through immersing students in learning activities. Like, how cool. That's fabulous. Share that out. People need to be hearing your stories. So regardless of where you're at, that's really powerful. And Rob, you actually touched on something I'd love to transition to here, because you talked about this opportunity we have to share, right? To share information, hopefully encourage, inspire, and support others, right? What an incredible community we live in, that this is the mindset. You not only have done that on social media, but through books and blogging. I'd love to hear about your journey there. And I know you have some exciting news to share as well in terms of books.
Thank you. So initially, like, my first kind of dip into wanting to get my message out was definitely blogging. And, I'm one of those people that I think I struggled a lot with writing when I was a kid. And I think actually probably through college and even grad school. But ultimately I started realizing something which makes so much sense, but sometimes we forget it. But to be good at anything, you just have to practice, and we may talk a little bit more about literacy today, but boy, at the bottom of the bag, if we want our kids to become better readers, they have to read. And so I started blogging, and, I'll share this with folks if you're coming back and checking this and you're interested in blogging, because my entry into blogging was a little frustrating. I thought that the people that I knew might want to contribute to my blog, and no one did. For whatever reason, they didn't want to write. They thought their writing was going to be judged. They didn't have time. So I just said, okay, I'll just do it on my own. And so built up a website, and just started putting blogs up there and getting information out. And then, just like so many things that's really interesting within social media, things start growing, and then suddenly people start reaching out to you. And now, I have people booked into my blog for 2 years ahead. But it all started with just basically me and just taking a chance and getting some information out there. And then after blogging, started thinking about writing a book, and which is an interesting kind of journey for people. At some point, a lot of educators hit this place where they think, oh, I have something interesting to share, and and maybe I'll dip into that kind of world of writing a book. So that was another thing that I had to learn about, because there's a big difference, as you absolutely know, Ray, between having this idea and then actually creating, a book of 150 to 250 pages. It's a long journey, but started doing that, and that's been a lot of fun also. So I've written for Dave Burgess. I've written for Scholastic a book, and written 2 books for Corwin, The 10-Minute Principle, and my new book, which is coming out in January, called Aiming High: Leadership Actions to Improve Learning Gains, which is really a book about post-pandemic leadership and what needs to happen within the building to elevate literacy and mathematics for kids after they've come off, the pandemic.
And so where did that focus come from? I mean, you are in quarantine, the whole world is shut down, and you're just sitting back, sipping coffee, thinking about, I think on all my free time, I'm going to just start writing a book that is going to talk about the next phase, the continuous phase that we're in of this world of supporting students post-pandemic. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, so I think everyone is either reflecting now or will reflect over time, what closure, what quarantine, meant to them, how they experienced it, and really probably what kind of trauma, they've experienced from that time or are continuing to experience. So when we went into that, I was a principal with over 20 years experience as a building level principal, and had gotten at least relatively comfortable with how I do my job. And how I need to navigate my job day in and day out. But then, suddenly, we're virtual. And suddenly, I have to really redefine how I connect with people, how I build relationships, how I do my job. And that started getting me thinking about my leadership and the elements of my leadership that could carry me through that time. And also ideas about how to move back towards normalcy afterwards. And then I think, along with that, uh, understanding that literacy and numeracy are really the core, especially at middle school, for kids to be able to be successful as they move through high school, and realizing that there's going to be some learning gaps with kids. How do we move forward in a positive way? And I don't want to go deeper into it, but getting into like deficit thinking and asset-based thinking, and what needs to happen within classrooms, what needs to happen in terms of building level leadership to help create the conditions in classrooms that that this can be elevated. And I will say, we did we had unfortunately a lot of really good PD from Chad, and the grid method. And I know you've done a tremendous amount of work with that too. My staff watched some of your videos, took some online courses from Chad, and so the grid method was a big help for us during that time. And so now we're going through a time trying to understand, how does this all fit in as we move away from virtual learning, into what at least is like quote unquote more normal learning. And then for me, what's my role to help facilitate that and make that happen in a positive way?
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
What do you think you like more, blogs or books? Is that a loaded question?
No, it's not.
It's different type of writing. Like, at least for me, it's always been so different, and I think they're both really challenging. But do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I mean, the quick answer would be blogging, because I don't have an editor, and I have a lot more freedom to be able to write what I want to write the way that I want to write it. And I think certain books, books that I can kind of tap into my voice as a writer, are probably a little more enjoyable than trying to write really academic writing. But blogs are fun because you write it, you get it out there. After you've done it for a while, you can get some feedback and you can engage with people. But books, and I've never asked you how long it takes from like the conceptual idea to actually having the book in place. But it's 6 months. I mean, or more. It's not. It takes time to get there.
Yes, you're right. And like the satisfaction, yeah, it's like delayed, right? You're not seeing the immediate fruits of your labor. It's comical. I'm sure you have people ask you all the time for advice in a lot of spaces, specifically in book writing. And one of the things I hear most frequently is sharing with people, if you want to write a book, write a blog. And then you can take that information, kind of compile it, and allow yourself to not start from that 0 point in writing a book, but you'll have a foundation of content that you can build off of. Did you do that for any of your books, or did you kind of go with them as like separate projects you're working
on? A little bit. There's another book that I wrote for Benchmark called Schools Full of Readers. And my blog is heavily focused on reading. So my podcasts are only about reading and literacy. So that kind of was a springboard to kind of inspire me to take it to, another level and think about writing a book also. But I would say also for me, as a principal, I don't want to be self-effacing, but principals typically write bland. You write administrative writing. So, and to write a book well, you've got to have voice. And, one of the things that I liked about your book that you and Adam wrote, very, very clear voice. Your voice resonates through the book. Adam's voice, they're not the same, they're different, and they're both really strong. And so learning how to get my voice into my writing with the balance that was right for me, because, as everyone kind of finds their style with that. It took a lot of time, but blogging was a good way to kind of open up the door for that to happen.
So important. I appreciate that. That's so important. Something I wanted to touch on earlier that we didn't get to is I would love to learn more about your school. I mean, you're very passionate about being a principal. You're always eager to support with leadership. Can you give some perspective to our network here, to the Teach Better family? Kind of what's your school like? How big is it? Kind of, can you make those details?
Yeah, absolutely. My school's called Johnson Williams Middle School. It's in Berryville, Virginia, which is in Clark County. It's a small county that connects to some of the much larger counties in Northern Virginia. So people who may listen to this heard of counties called Fairfax and Loudoun and Arlington. So we're not there. But we border them. So we're still kind of bucolic, and those counties are much larger. I'm principal of a small middle school, at least small in terms of Virginia, about 425 kids in grades 6, 7, and 8. And, I think just like every middle school, we try to provide a really well-rounded experience for kids, with extracurriculars and activities, uh, strong academics, lots of choices for kids. Middle school's a time that kids start dipping their feet into different electives and start thinking about what they might be more interested in, as they move off to college, and we do all of those things. But I think if there's one thing that's been a real help for me in my building is, have great faculty. And, I've had there are people that have been in my building for 30, 40, and 50 years. And there are people in my building now who I taught with when I was a teacher there, when you were a little kid. And, and they're still in the building because no matter what, one of the things that I've learned over time is that, it's not so much about the schedule or, maybe, the course options, extracurriculars. It's really about the people that are helping to make that happen in your building. And if the people aren't committed and inspired to really do a good job for kids, then it doesn't really work well. So I have all those things, kind of in my melting pot that makes the job good. And it's probably one of the reasons that I've been able to do it for a long time and not feel like I'm twitching right now on this live feed because I'm so nervous of trying to manage my job.
No, and that's powerful. So many people would typically say, oh, the narrative, the brand of a school comes from leadership in the principal. And I think I've read enough of your content that you continue to push out that it really is a collaborative effort of building a strong building.
Yeah,
Speak to that.
It is collaborative. I guess I could say it another way, which is every school that you walk into that has a really good culture, absolutely it is led by the principal, but the principal isn't the person who creates that. It has to be created in partnership and collaboration with the teachers. But what I can say is the principal is in a unique position to ruin everything. Principal can ruin the culture in the building. The principal can ruin trust in the building. The principal can ruin the energy and inspiration that people bring into the building, all by their lonesome. And that is one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and and very concerned always that the right people are in buildings to help elevate learning for kids and create an environment that teachers actually want to teach in.
Okay, you have to tell us the pitfalls of that, because every leader that was just listening to the Daily Drop-In this morning just felt the weight on their shoulders and was like, "Ugh, I hope I don't mess it up today." So tell me more on how you feel a principal has that much control to really bring down the success of a building.
There's a lot of ways that can happen, Ray. I think the classic way is a little bit more subtle, and it exists when there's a disconnect between the words that someone uses and their actions. So you have someone who talks a really good game, but the teachers in the building and families experience something very, very different between their actions. So with leadership, and it's the same thing. Pardon me. With what you do and what you've certainly done in the classroom, there has to be a lot of consistency between your words and your actions. Otherwise, no one believes your words. So, and so you mix that into, the culture of the building, the vision of a building. It cannot be born out of one person. It has to be collective. And that's something that the principal can work in partnership with to elevate. But it can absolutely be ruined by the principal. Now, it can be ruined in more overt ways, where someone is just simply undermining or making it really challenging for people to be innovative or different. One of the things that I've written about is, if teachers are innovative in a building, but they find out that when they are observed by a principal that they are given bad evaluations for being innovative, they will not be innovative anymore. Yeah. If a teacher believes in independent reading in their classroom, but in an evaluation, a principal says, well, you're not using your instructional time well, kids are reading. They're probably not going to be having independent reading within their classroom. Yeah. And so, so that moves into, people in leadership positions having an understanding philosophically of what needs to be in place within a building in terms of instructional models and in terms of some of the core elements, trust and relationship, that make a building work. I like to draw some parallels between, an effective classroom and an effective school. So an effective classroom, clear expectations, great relationships with kids, trust, hope, an opportunity to better yourself, an opportunity to try, to be innovative. I mean, all those things, exist in good classrooms, and you and I can brainstorm and make that list even bigger. But they all have to be modeled by the principal too. If they don't happen in the classroom.
Absolutely. And I like that your connection between the environment an educator is creating at a classroom level being so similar to the environment a leadership member might be making in a building level. And I'm confident that it continues even higher than that, because we really are just trying to create a culture around us, and we all have a kind of element, a responsibility within that structure. Something you touched on with that in terms of leadership is this avenue of trust. And so maybe if there's one takeaway from today, if you're listening this morning, whether you are in a leadership role with a title or a leadership role without the title, the opportunity to gain others' trust and be somebody that people seek out as a trustworthy person can really help in your leadership style. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can. And trust is one of those things that it needs to be constantly worked on, day in and day out. And it takes time to build trust, but it does not take a lot of time to lose it. And, the other thing, Ray, that you really hit on that's 100% correct is, yeah, there should be really strong parallelism from the classroom all the way up to the superintendency and the division. So, I'll give you an example. So let's say, innovation something. So that's a buzzword. We hear a lot about innovation now. Innovation is something that can be a focal point for a school division from the superintendent, central office, principal, into the classroom, into the instructional models that exist within a classroom. It becomes, when any of those are missing. So if it's missing at the superintendency level and it's a big division, but it's alive within the building, it may still exist within the building. It may. But if it doesn't exist at the principal level, a belief in innovation, if that's the focal point for the school division, it's going to only exist in pockets within the building.
Yeah, no, it's a lot
and that hurts kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of responsibility, a lot of power that we need to continue to reflect on, is how are we building a trustworthy culture, an innovation focused culture, to ensure that everyone around us feels comfort and responsibility to continue to add to that messaging. I love that. That's so important. Rob, obviously, we've shared a lot so far in these, the last little bit over than a half an hour we've had together. I know you mentioned your blogs, your books. Where can our community continue to gain resources, gain insight on this topic? I can only assume these are the types of things that they can find on your website.
Yeah. My books are available on Amazon. If we're not connected on Twitter, I always love to continue to build my PLN. I'm at eRob Principal on Twitter. It should be relatively easy to find. And also connecting through LinkedIn. I have built a lot of really cool professional connections through LinkedIn. And I have a professional Facebook page, but that is an area that's not my strength. My wife was kind enough to help set that up for me. So it's really just a way just so I can share information out. But the professional page doesn't allow me to friend people. And then my blog, I'm sorry, is the Rob Review blog. Everything, and this goes back to the brand thing that we talked about. I purposely built everything around my name just so it would be easy to find.
Of course.
So my blog is the Rob Review blog. My podcast, not too complex here, the Rob Review podcast. And those are good places to connect, especially if someone's interested in literacy and learning about reading.
Oh my gosh, phenomenal. Oh, so many good resources. If you don't mind, I'd love to have you touch on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a continuous discussion. I feel like when I'm meeting with somebody who wants to learn about social media, because I know that I've connected with classroom teachers that are like, oh, that's not a social media that I belong on. And yet I think there's a lot of leadership connected on LinkedIn. So what's your journey been like on that platform, if you don't mind sharing?
No. It'd be great. I initially it was just kind of just dipping my feet in the water, saying, okay, this may be something that I'm interested in. So I will, just kind of give this a roll. But what I found was that if you can set up an informative homepage on LinkedIn, that you'll start connecting with people that are interested in how you describe yourself. So, if I describe myself as the guy that likes fishing, I'll probably connect with a lot of people that are interested in fishing or people that have boat sales. But going back to the brand piece, it's very specific to leadership, motivation, and literacy. And so then my connection started building, and it's been good. I connect with a lot of people through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a good avenue for people to share. It's a good way to share blogs, to get your information out in a different way, and also to connect with people, particularly on the industry side of education, that might have things that they'd like to connect with you about, or that you could be interested in. The other thing that's nice about LinkedIn is they allow you to schedule events, and it's actually a free thing within LinkedIn. So you can create an event. So let's say, I don't know, maybe it's, Ray is going to be doing a free webinar on the grid method or on teaching. And then you could schedule that into LinkedIn as an event and build a link to the event and message it out to everyone that you're connected with in LinkedIn. So they would see that, on 7 o'clock, on, I don't know, October 30th, click here on this link and you can see Ray. And so it's a way to direct people to other hubs that you have within social media.
Yeah, I really appreciate LinkedIn for that connection piece. I think that is so under acknowledged. Even, you go on Twitter and you search somebody you want to connect with, like connecting with Evan Robb, and that's great. And oh my gosh, there's so many opportunities there to then connect with more people who you might be connected to. I have a few options on Twitter. I can scroll through your feed and I can connect with somebody you've retweeted recently, or maybe we're in a conversation with. I can go to your follow list and I can kind of sort through who you might follow and see who might be a good option. On LinkedIn, it really allows you to say, this is a first connection, a second connection, a third connection. Right. You're kind of consistently finding that 6 degrees of separation between you and other people, which I really appreciate. I think that gives you some perspective as to who you might be connecting with there.
Yeah, I found it valuable, and I also like to share information out on LinkedIn. I share a lot of articles and things that are of interest with me, and just to continue to make connections with people. Yeah. Twitter is probably the one that I'm most interested in, I would say.
Yeah, I do love Twitter. I feel like I use every social media a little bit differently, right or wrong. That just is the case. And Twitter, absolutely, I've always enjoyed. But I actually would love to touch on articles. You talked about sharing articles, and we're going to share an article with all of you this morning for our Teach Better family. So we're going to head into our good news article as well as the holidays for today, and we'll be right back. Rob, I don't know about you, but Evan, I don't know about you, but I am a huge fan of celebrating holidays. I think any opportunity to celebrate a holiday is a good thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I could not agree more. I love celebrating holidays. Thanksgiving is probably my favorite because I don't have to get stressed out with gifts.
Are you like a football watching person on Thanksgiving? Like no gifts, it's just food and football the whole day?
No, I probably have to be honest with you and say, I might watch a little bit of that, but I'm probably more of a Netflix and watch a movie and sit by the fireplace kind of person.
There's nothing wrong with Netflix sitting by the fireplace, relaxing for the day. I'm a huge supporter of that. For our good news story for the day, we'll get into in just a second, but some holidays that we have. Just so you know, we have some food-related holidays that we all are going to feel responsible to celebrate. So make sure you get prepared for this one. It is International Day of the Nacho. Are you a nacho person, Evan?
No, I'm not a nacho person.
I feel like nachos are kind of like pizza. Like anything can be on them. And I mean, the only thing you may not like in a nacho is possibly like the chip. If you don't like chips, nachos isn't going to be a thing. But from there, you can make them simple. You can like pile it up. I've seen some ridiculous nacho volcanoes. Those are ridiculous. But, I am going to encourage everybody to go find some nachos today in any shape or form.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think, Ray, as you get older, and this clearly is not you right now, you start paying a lot more attention to what you're eating.
Okay, well, I have to tell you, I do pay attention to what I'm eating. And while I feel like I'm a very healthy eater, nachos is not in my daily routine. I do believe that French fries is a core major food group. So that is probably a little bit of a youthful mentality, but I do believe it to be true, and I'm not sure it will ever change, but maybe I'll find out the hard way. It is also Back to the Future Day. Have you seen the movies?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, today is the day to celebrate Back to the Future. It's also celebration of the Mind Day, Conflict Revolution or Resolution Day, Count Your Buttons Day, which is always an interesting mindset. International Shake It Out Day. I feel like that's a Taylor Swift song. National Apple Day. So make sure you go grab an apple for yourself and then maybe grab one for your colleague as well. And then the last thing that we want to celebrate here is that it's National Pumpkin Cheesecake Day. Are you a cheesecake person? I don't know that I am a pumpkin cheesecake person. I'm not sure I've ever had that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know that I'd seek it out, but if it was in front of me, I probably would have some.
Okay, so you would like begrudgingly eat a slice of pumpkin cheesecake.
Yeah.
It's good to know. That's good to know. Also on here that's notable, I thought this was always interesting when this comes up on our holiday list. It's National Reptile Awareness Day, but it's also National Reptile Day. I'm unaware of the differences, between celebrating a reptile and celebrating the awareness of reptiles. But either way, if you are heading into the classroom this morning and you're looking for some fun opportunities to foster discussion, maybe a good laugh in your classroom, maybe involve like a gecko or a lizard. I think that could be a good option for us this week.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I was in Florida not too long ago, and in the Florida Keys, iguanas seem like squirrels up here in Virginia. And
Isn't it funny how that happens?
they
Unreal.
are, yeah. And so I was actually by the swimming pool and looked up, and there was a iguana probably about 5-6 feet long, just sticking in its head in the pool drinking water.
There is an element that I've always enjoyed about traveling. I enjoy a ton of things about traveling, but kind of seeing the different wildlife, right? You're walking in Illinois, for example, if you come to Chicago and hang out with me anytime, Evan, I'd love to meet you in person. And squirrels and rabbits are in abundance, right? You can't get rid of them.
Mhm.
You get to Florida, now you're talking about iguanas being all over the place. The next location where we're headed that has to do with our good news article today is Israel. And I've spent multiple months in Israel. And one of the funniest conversations I had with an Israeli was that they didn't have skunks. I didn't really think about that. Like they don't have the terrible notion of walking outside, letting the dog out to go to the bathroom late at night and being fearful that the dog will get skunked. That's different.
Didn't know that.
See? Fun fact of the day.
Absolutely.
Fun fact of the day. Evan, have you interacted with a skunk before where you're living?
Yes. What typically happens in Virginia is there are certain times of the year when the little guys get out onto the road, and I have never hit a skunk with my car, but I've been by them when unfortunately someone did hit them, and then it gets on your car. And then when you have your air conditioning on, especially if you don't have recirculating air going on, suddenly, it just blows right into your car.
Terrible. Yes, they're such interesting animals. Heading back to our good news article here, something that I was seeing all over the news over the last few days. This would be really interesting to bring into the classroom. I thought this would be a good one for those of you who have chosen to use our good news articles that we're able to feature on Daily Drop-In Morning Show and use them with your students either later today or later this week. There was a diver that found a 900-year-old sword in off the coast of an Israeli town. And there are photos. There are all these really interesting elements. They say it's from the Crusades era. It goes through currently right now. It is with the possession of the Israeli Antiquity Authority, which is the IAA, to further study. But this sword or this, axe that they're talking about is something that is over 900 years old. And it was found while some members of that group were diving off the Israeli coast. It is a big sword. If you are somebody that has a few moments today, go Google this. There's a great photo of the Antiquity Authority holding the sword. It's almost the full length of this gentleman's height and body, and it is covered in shells. To be honest, it looks fake. It's beautifully kind of like aged, where it's full of sand and seashells and has this really cool sword outline. So that could be a great conversation to bring into any classroom this morning.
Yeah, maybe also a good motivator to go back and watch the movie Highlander.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
See, so many suggestions we have here. Turn on the fire while you're doing that. It's a good time of year. Evan, we're going to wrap up our show here, but I would love if you don't mind sharing again where people can stay connected to you. I also would love to encourage our Teach Better family to be a part of the big book launch that will be happening in January. We would love to continue to celebrate not only the work you're doing, but obviously this new project that you've been working on to really, encourage not only our leadership to be successful, but really have some important conversations around literacy. So if you don't mind sharing those details, I'd love to have our network continue to reach out to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Ray. Any book that I've written, if you just put my name into Amazon, it is there. And again, they range from leadership to literacy. So, perhaps something might be of interest to anyone listening or to any other member within your school or another educator that you know. Connect with me on Twitter at erobprincipal. And, I really like to build my PLN that way. And I will say that, and I don't say this disparagingly, but some folks are on Twitter, but they're really not on Twitter. I actually am. And, I really appreciate when people direct message me. I'm always happy to get back with folks. Sometimes people want to talk a little more with a Google Meet or something like that. Always willing to do that. I'm really committed to helping elevate our profession and support and have those good kind of conversations. For LinkedIn, Facebook, if you just search my name, you'll be able to find me that way and love to connect that way. My blog is the Rob Review blog and podcast is Rob Review podcast. Again, those focus very, very heavily on literacy, but I have a lot of guest writers who are experts on literacy from all over the country, really all over the world. So if you're not that enthused with my writing, there's other people that write really great content for me too.
Always a great resource. Make sure when you head over to that website to bookmark it, because I'm confident blogs are published consistently. It's always good to go back and go see what's new on that spot. So thank you, Evan, for joining the Daily Drop-In. Thank you for sharing your insight, your resources. This is a phenomenal conversation. I really appreciate you. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day with your incredible building that I'm sure you get to head into here in just a little bit. Yeah. For everybody else, we hope you have the most wonderful Thursday ahead of you. You probably don't even know, but this Thursday is going to be killer. We can't wait to hear all about it. And of course, if you run into any hurdles or roadblocks, we're here to be a brainstorm partner with you. So please enjoy October 21st. Enjoy your last sip of coffee as you head into one of the best days ever. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning on Friday with the one and only Brad Hughes joining us to recap the week and get into the weekend. So thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.